and you can just hear the rounds almost like creeping up on you. And it feels like it's like hunting you down.
We're angry, we're grieving, confused, people are hurting.
Right to a Fox News alert on the mass murder on the Las Vegas Strip. 59 people now dead, 527 hurt in the deadliest shooting in modern American history.
Figure out what led a lone gunman to open fire on a crowd of innocent concert goers from inside that luxury hotel in Las Vegas, surrounded by 23 guns and thousands of rounds of ammo.
All right, this morning we are learning more about the victims and the American heroes who risked their own lives to save others.
I saw people in front of me get hit with bullets, and my first thing was just to hop on my friends and make sure everyone was okay.
There was a gentleman that was shot, and he said, "Can you help me?" And so I put him in my car, and I had like 6 people in my car, people with shoes, running just to get away. And
wow, thoughts and prayers are pouring in from around the world. For example,
in Paris, the Eiffel Tower, look at that, went dark. Tel Aviv, City Hall lighting up in red, white, and blue in solidarity with the United States.
All right, Steve Ducey is in Las Vegas, and to my immediate left, Steve, I don't know if you have a monitor there. We're bringing in Laura Ingraham of LifeSet, upcoming host of Fox News, the 10 p.m. show premiering this month, The Ingraham Angle. And Laura, this is baptism by fire, right? I mean, as you get set to launch your show, this is an overwhelming story.
Yeah, well, I think in seeing those video clips of the true heroes of the worst mass shooting we've seen in American history, you do remember in this time of great evil, there's an enormous amount of evil in the world, that really is the best of who we are as people, regardless of all politics, regardless of who you are, where you live in the world. This is what we're called to do. It's hard. I mean, to actually throw yourself on someone else's body is what military are trained to do, and I know we have a lot of military in that audience. Yeah, but that is what we're called to do every day. We kind of forget about it in the left-right fight that we all, referee or are in ourselves. But we are called to do that on a daily basis, and to see that those people under fire, not knowing where the bullets were coming, first instinct of natural instinct is to run. But the truly selfless people who are physically able did a lot more. That's inspiring. I was like, what would I do in that situation? You hope you would try to help other people.
Mm-hmm. Steve, I think you have a question.
Well, I was just going to ask Laura, out here, I arrived here yesterday when the sun was up, and it was a beautiful day, but it was the darkest day in Las Vegas history, and people are just trying to figure out, why did he do it? And of course, the first inclination yesterday when we were on the air in New York was it terrorism? Unfortunately, that's the world we live in. You're trying to find a connection to ISIS or Al-Qaeda or something with everything bad that happens these days. And right now, it doesn't look like there's any connection at all. His motive? We don't know at this point.
Well, and people want to believe there's some explanation for this. And that is also the natural human impulse. But it could be as simple as this man flipped, something inside of him flipped, and he could have been in his own way isolated without anyone knowing it. He could have been some guy who felt deeply lonely. On the inside, on the outside, his neighbors saying, "Oh, he seemed pretty normal, kind of quiet, but he liked to gamble." You never really know what's going on in someone else's head, especially in this day and age. When
64-year-old, a very wealthy guy who loved to gamble. His girlfriend evidently liked to gamble as well. Yeah. And they do believe, according to some local writers out there writing for the Las Vegas Journal, they think that room was comped. They say he was a high-stakes roller. Yeah. They believe he got those 2 rooms.
They do that
and they know each other, and they know him. But here's the other thing. Bin Laden, we knew who to hate. You saw Sandy Hook, we knew that mutant living in his basement. We don't even know enough about him to hate him yet. We know what he did, we hate what he did, but we can't figure out how to stop it until we find out why he did it.
Well, and there are some things, again, it's not a satisfying response. There are some things you cannot stop. I mean, we've said, well, is there a government solution to every human problem? I would say no. And I think we also should think about what we do on a daily basis as individuals to each other. I also think we should remember that we've done a lot to kick Christianity, God, to the curb in our society, in the way we treat each other, in some government policy, in our schools. We can talk a lot about climate change and all these wonderful things in school, but we can't say a simple prayer or even have a moment of silence in a lot of schools today. That's just not good. We have to get back to the basics in human society, and I think our country is hurting in a lot of ways, and people on the left are upset, people on the right are upset. You have to understand there is not a government solution for every problem. And a lot of people on the left are like, oh, if we only did this, background checks. He would have passed a background check. Oh, if we only outlawed machine guns. Guess what? They're outlawed except for grandfathered machine guns, very difficult to get. So that wouldn't have helped. And when pressed, a lot of these congressmen, I saw them on other networks this morning, they were stumbling. Okay, what specifically would have stopped this? They actually have no constitutional answer.
You mentioned religion. We all have our cross to bear, right? We all are sinners, and we fall short. This guy, his brother said, did not have religion in his life. You wear your cross. I heard you last night say you went to St. Patrick's to pray. There were a lot of people there lighting candles and praying. And then I heard you say, Big and Rich, when they sang on stage, God Bless America, an hour before some of them were killed to go meet God, that you said that was such a gift to their families. And I agree with you. The president yesterday was consoling our nation, and it is so nice to hear our president quoting scripture, because I agree with you. We need to go back to that as families, because I feel sorry for this guy. I know that's awful to say, because he didn't have God.
No, well, he didn't. It was some kind of deep vacuum, and without a moral center in our lives, and again, we're all sinners, we all fall. Without that moral center, what do you compare your behavior to?
I don't know. I see a lot of people that don't go to church and never crack the Bible who are some of the best people, and they don't seem to yearn for anything. I know what you're saying about going for religion, and that's great, but there's a lot of people out there watching that aren't very religious. You know, how's
that worked out for us as a country? I mean, all I would say is, how has it worked out for us, a country where secular humanism and progressivism has supplanted the understanding that without virtue, there is no real freedom. Freedom without virtue is chaos.
But there's a lot of people don't go to church. They don't open up fire.
Obviously, people seize on that comment and say, "Oh, they're saying that people aren't religious." And that's not what we're saying. We're talking about this individual. We don't know what motivated him. We're just talking about in society at large, there is a vacuum in public life where everyone's afraid to say what the truth is. The truth is there is evil in the world, and in the absence of a moral and virtue center, lots of bad things can happen. Not always, but sometimes.
Just to deal Steve in. Steve, for example, if you look at his dad's an evil guy, reportedly. He is wanted. He escapes from jail. He's just a terrible person. This guy showed no indications that he had the genes of his father so far up until 2 days ago.
Right, we don't know what the motivation is. But going back to your earlier point, Laura, guardian angels. How many of them were in the field behind me after that guy shot so many people? I mean, 500 people went to the hospital, 59 killed. But we were talking earlier about how these guys who were trained by the military knew to stick their finger into a bullet hole to stop the wounding, to save a life. There were so many guardian angels out here 36 hours ago that saved lives. And that just says a lot about where we are, because when the bullets were raining down from that building, everybody was running this way, but instead they were running back at the shots.
And the images that the survivors of this hideous attack will take with them for the rest of their lives, the worst of humanity, the most grisly images, and yet the best of people. And in our own ways, we all live with this duality in our lives. And I do believe that it's a time for us, Republicans and Democrats, to go back to first principles. Government cannot solve every problem.
They can't stop hurricanes either, and that's another part. It's all really sadly related. I won't bring this up. I was stunned to see that Hillary Clinton weighed in immediately, saying the crowd fled at the sound of the gunshots. Imagine if the shooter had a silencer, which the NRA wants to make easier to get. Our grief isn't enough. We can put aside politics aside, stand up to the NRA and work together to try to stop this from happening. Really? Stand up to someone using, if this is an automatic weapon?
Yeah, well,
he bought it, he either altered that gun illegally, but he bought it, if it was a semi-automatic, he bought it legally.
Well, again, I mean, the politics of it is so inane at this point, but Hillary Clinton spoke before she knew any of the facts. You can't really put a silencer on an AR-15, melts the barrel. It's not what she said it is. And immediately, I was on the radio yesterday when this was happening, and all the people who actually know guns, like, she doesn't know what she's talking about. Just a level of ignorance, and I found it to be despicable. If Hillary Clinton wants to run for president again and take the Second Amendment to the ballot box, I think she should do it. Everyone who's upset, who thinks we could pass gun laws to stop an evil person from killing a lot of people with a car, a van, a gun, whatever, they should run for office and make that point. And if that's what happens, I guess the courts will have to understand and discern what is truly constitutional under our Second Amendment.
Senator Blumenthal and Murphy said the same thing.
Exactly.
How about what happened? The girl who worked at CBS, she was fired on Monday. She put on Facebook she was not sympathetic to the victims. She's only worked there for a year. They said this violated their standards, and she's no longer with CBS. But she said, I'm actually not even sympathetic because country music fans often are Republican gun toters.
Well, number one, she actually is right about country music fans. There are a lot of Second Amendment believers and a lot of gun owners. But I loved how CBS responded. They fired her, but they said, well, she only worked here for 1 year. I mean, imagine if she said something that was homophobic, anti-immigrant. They would be like, they wouldn't care how much she worked there for 5 minutes. She'd be gone and it should be denounced. It's one person. It's unfortunate for her. She's misguided. But again, in the moment of evil, I tend to try to look past that, and I try to look to what really was amazing in that response. And I think a lot of Americans are they're tired of this, the left-right, all the time. They're tired of it. I mean, we have to have debate. We should have vigorous debate. But it's despicable. Hillary Clinton's comments despicable. The Democrats today saying, we're not going to join a moment of silence because Republicans are not going to do anything. Okay.
Do what?
Is that, okay, don't join a moment of silence. I hope that makes you feel better. I don't think it probably makes most Americans feel better.
Steve, if you listened to the president's comments yesterday, and Steve Scalise, who was just a victim of a shooting yesterday as well, and the way he was received by both sides when he came back heroically in crutches, my hope is the president brings that sense of spirit to Puerto Rico and then back here in Vegas. Do you think we might be at a turning point where politics will finally look as petty as it is?
Well, I think the president will honor those who lost their lives, but he's also going to thank those first responders, the guardian angels we were talking about a little while ago. But at the same time, I've already talked to a couple of the lawmakers here in Las Vegas, and I said, okay, I was pre-interviewing them during the commercial, and I said, all right, you know, there are people in Washington, they're talking about gun control, they're talking politics. Do you feel like that is appropriate right now? And he said, you know what? No. For us to be on the ground in Las Vegas doing that before people are even buried is inappropriate. And so, in deference to them, I'm with them.
They hadn't even removed all the human remains from the site when Hillary Clinton was making her idiotic comment about the silencer. I mean, people want politicians to just take a breath for the most part. And look,
at least for 24 hours.
Again, if they want to push gun control legislation, they should do it. I mean, we have a democracy. They can push it. They can make their points. They can be very impassioned. That is our government. That is our representative democracy. But we do have a constitution. We do have a Heller decision on the books. And I guess we'll see where the courts take any legislative action that comes from this.
Right. Just tell me how it relates to stopping the next one, because I have yet to see a solid argument on that. Laura, thanks so much.
Great to see you.
All right. Meanwhile, 13 minutes after the hour.
Brand new video showing what a suite like the one the killer used looks like from the inside. We are live on the ground with that next.
And what could have caused this millionaire gambler to snap? Or did he snap? A forensic psychiatrist specializing in mass killers takes us inside the mind of a madman.
We are back with the Fox News Alert. Investigators racing to figure out what drove a high-stakes gambler, as he was described by some, to open fire on a crowd of 22,000 innocent concertgoers. Police piecing together clues after uncovering the shooter's arsenal of weapons in his cars and his houses. Joining us right now is Adam Housley, who was on the scene 45 minutes after the shooting started. And Adam, I heard you talk yesterday about how they used everything for a gurney. And take a step back.
Yeah.
Right over there is the freezer you were talking about in the middle of the street.
Yeah.
They put somebody on that because it's got wheels on it.
Yeah, it was actually inside the event. I mean, it was being used to sell ice cream or whatever they were, something cold, and it has wheels. I've grew up in a grocery store. Those are in the back room of the grocery store, and they put a body on it and they wheeled them down to here.
This far, and then
a car picked them up.
You know, there were so many first responders here yesterday who weren't necessarily first responders by trade.
Right. We actually were standing right here. There's nobody here but, police and people coming in from all directions, and that obviously being where the concert was. And one of the kids we ran across, maybe 21, 22 years old, walks up to me and he holds his arms up, and they're all bloody. And I said, "Are you okay?" He says, "Yeah, this is not my blood. Take a listen."
I was here enjoying the concert just like every other fellow American here. And, things happen, brother. What goes on here isn't American. That's not what we're about, and this is not okay. Other people run, that's okay, that's on them. I'm here for everybody else.
How many people did you help? How many people
7.
did you see down?
How many people did I see down? Probably close to 20.
In various, obviously, conditions?
Look, man, I'm not wearing any clothes up here. Everyone who I thought, has passed on, they have an article of my clothing covering their eyes, covering part of their body. Everyone who I saw breathing, I help, man.
Yeah, how many people did that kid save? And then we found this image from the 32nd floor on TripAdvisor yesterday that we put up. This is the floor that the shooter was on. You completely outdid us in the finding amazing video from the actual shooter's suite.
Right. A viewer that follows me on Twitter, and we've stayed in touch, gave us this video. He was here 1 year prior for the same exact event. You can see the video. It's amazing. He contacted me and said this is the exact same room, and we double checked to make sure, and sure enough it is. And you can see walking in, you can see the glass that's just, the massive front windows of glass that curls around that gave him 2 distinctly different perspectives and wide open, unobstructed views of the concert below.
So the president is going to be arriving tomorrow. Do we have any idea yet what he's going to be doing?
No, I mean, obviously we're right by the airport. This is right near the airport, so you got to believe he's going to come over to the scene, but we don't know yet for sure.
All right, Adam Housley, thank you very much.
Right.
You've done a good job telling us what's happened here.
Appreciate it. Right, thanks.
All right, next up on the rundown on this Tuesday, what could have caused this gambler to open fire on that concert crowd? A forensic psychiatrist specializing in mass killers takes us inside the mind of a madman. Next.
Back to the latest out of Las Vegas in just a moment. But first, some other headlines that are making news today, and we begin with a Fox News alert. Brand new video just in of President Trump and the First Lady. They're heading down to Puerto Rico, where they will oversee recovery efforts after Hurricane Maria. The president's expected to meet with the mayor of San Juan, who criticized the federal response, calling it ineffective. President Trump defended his efforts and accused the mayor of showing poor leadership. Also breaking right now, Rock and Roll Hall of Famer Tom Petty has died. Tom Petty passed away in the hospital late last night after suffering a heart attack at his house in California. He was only 66 years old. And the NFL holding a moment of silence for Las Vegas shooting victims ahead of Monday Night Football. Moments later, 2 Kansas City Chiefs took a seat for the national anthem. Everyone on the Washington Redskins during the national anthem stood up.
All right, 45 minutes now after the hour. Investigators now trying to figure out why a gunman opened fire with 23 firearms in his hotel and 19 back at his house, killing at least 59 people and injuring hundreds more. According to his brother, there was no clues he would commit such a horrific attack.
No religious affiliation, no political affiliation, no. He just hung out, shocked, horrified, completely dumbfounded about this.
So what goes on in the mind of a shooter like this as they shoot at innocent people? Here now to discuss this is Dr. Michael Wellner. He's a top forensic psychiatrist who has personally examined a number of mass killers. Doctor, thank you for being with us.
Good morning.
What happened? What's going on here?
Well, if you want to understand the killer, the most important place to start is with the victims. And what we can immediately see is that he had no relationship to the killers. A workplace mass shooter knows his victims.
And they want to see the victim.
And
right?
they want to destroy, annihilate the workplace. It's another key point. The family mass shooter knows the family, wants to annihilate the family. The criminal enterprise wants to kill the gang. So it's a stranger mass homicide. And a stranger mass homicide happens for one of two reasons. Either a person acting for a cause, or a person acting because he wants to transcend notoriety and kill as many people as possible, like a James Holmes. However,
James Holmes, who was the
Aurora shooter.
And you worked on that case.
Yes. Here's the thing. Shooting for notoriety's sake and nothing more is a young man's crime. And this is a 64-year-old with no dramatic mental illness, no major decline, someone who's intact. I think if we want to understand what's behind the crime, we should look at James Hodgkinson, the shooter of Congressman Scalise, because that crime itself was intended to be a spectacle and of much bigger scope. Imagine this. What he intended to do, Hodgkinson, was not only kill all of those lawmakers,
Republicans,
but in doing so, we would have had to have special elections to replace all of them. And if it weren't for the security people who intercepted him, you had all kinds of congressmen and lawmakers in a dugout, defenseless, who would have been mowed down. My point is, a spectacle is either designed to cause some derivative impact or to instigate some cause discussion. So the point is, he's an older man. There's no definable mental history or decline, and yet it happens now. Now, if there is a cause, there will be a manifesto, there will be a communication with the television or other kind of media or social media. It will be out there. If there's nothing to necessarily tie him to a cause, then instigating is enough. And that's exactly what the parallel is with another older man's crime, Hodgkinson, spectacle crime, just like the person who flew a plane into the IRS. People who commit crimes for notoriety alone are young, and he's not.
What about genetics? Because his dad was on the FBI most wanted list, was a bank robber.
Well, the genetics of psychopathy are, of course, 50% we inherit roughly, but in terms of the genetics of psychopathy, they may be as important as environment. One thing that you want to appreciate about the
Doctor,
mass
I just want to
killer.
hold on one second.
Yeah.
We're splitting the screen with the President of the United States. He's arriving at Joint Base Andrews, and he's going to be heading over to Puerto Rico shortly. Of course, he greets the military who escorts him over to Air Force One. Okay, go ahead.
Tying into the president, people who commit mass killings of folks that they don't know have to be detached. And he's detached. He's many floors away. He's killing them through a scope. They're dehumanized. Here's the big take home in terms of what we can do to prevent. Absolutely, people who are gun enthusiasts and who are populists or nationalists in this country are dehumanized. They're demonized. I travel all over the United States. I don't experience hatred. I turn on the television in certain media, and I see these people demonized. When you have a CBS News executive who talks about not having sympathy, the point is his mindset is that they deserve to die.
Yes.
And so a person who adopts a cause may be otherwise law-abiding, but he feels righteously justified that the end justifies the means. So we're talking now about gun control because he committed an over-the-top gun crime. Doesn't mean that guns was the ideology. What I'm saying is it's the idea of instigating and a means to an end with people you dehumanize.
All right, let's back up a little bit.
Whether it's this or racism.
But who are you shooting at? You said look at the target and work your way backwards.
That's right.
What do country music fans and country music artists represent?
It's Americana. It could be guns. I'm not suggesting that I know the ideology. Look, it could be that he had an issue with Las Vegas. But my point is, because this is a national event, it's in Las Vegas. But my point is, cause is pointed out by what he says. He's going to either lay it out or he's smart enough to know what this would instigate. Otherwise, one can't speculate. What I am saying is, when you kill complete strangers and try to kill as many as possible, you're trying to create a spectacle. And when you're not a young person, you've evolved past the immaturity that says, if I kill as many people as I can, people will think I'm somebody. He's more mature than that. He's lived his life.
Jeff Zeleny says that this is, the country music fans for the most part are Republican, and the president, by showing this type of sympathy, is doing something for his base. Is country music fans symbolic of Republicans?
Well, I think that CNN's going to have to answer for how they demonize gun enthusiasts and how CNN actually contributes to mass shooting. And I believe that they do. But that's a side issue. I think, look, the president has a responsibility anytime there's a national disaster, whether it's here or whether it's Puerto Rico, to console the nation. I think what we can do is signify this as disgusting, There are no George Zimmerman's copycats. There are no Donald Sterling copycats. There are no Jerry Sandusky copycats. Why we've demonized them. We don't demonize mass killing enough, and that's why people feel they could do it for a cause.
Dr. Wellner, thank you so much for being with us.
All right, straight ahead, police working to learn more about the Las Vegas shooter, as we are too. Let's go inside the home. Jillian Milley will be next. All right, we're back with the Fox News Alert. Moments ago, the president reacting to the tragic Las Vegas shooting before departing for Puerto Rico, calling the Las Vegas shooter a sick, demented man.
He called it a miracle first responders were able to save so many people, and that it could have been a lot worse. This as authorities are now digging through the Las Vegas shooter's house. The search for a motive is intensifying. And we are now learning more about his family's criminal past.
Steve? Jillian picks up our team coverage. She is live from outside the shooter's house in Mesquite, which is about 90 miles north of where I'm standing right now here in Vegas. Jillian?
That's right. Good morning. It was a much different scene here yesterday. We still have a police presence in this area, but you can see the house is dark. The garage door actually boarded up because police had to gain access into his house yesterday through the garage door. So that garage door has been torn apart. Once SWAT got inside, that's where they discovered 19 guns, thousands of rounds of ammunition with explosives in there as well. They're looking through computers, trying to figure out the past of Stephen Paddock. I want to walk you right now about 20, 30 feet this way. I know it's dark, but I want to give you a sense of what this community is like and how close these homes are to one another. This is his direct neighbor. You can see a sign out front. It's actually a cardboard box. It says, "Do not block our driveway. Stay off our yard. Do not ring our doorbell." The house directly on the other side, if we can pull up that picture right now, they posted a sign on their front door. And I want to read it to you because if you hear it and you see it, it's actually pretty telling if you ask me. It says, "Our community is doing its best to deal with the tragic event that occurred in Las Vegas on Sunday night and the shock that one of our neighbors was responsible for the heinous act." Now, at the end, it goes on to say, "We did not know him." We did not know him, a guy who lives 20 feet away. How do you not know him? That's the big question. How do you not have conversations with this guy? I mean, that's what the sign says out front their door, and that's what's leaving many people in shock right now, including his brother. Listen.
We're shocked, horrified, completely dumbfounded about this. There's nothing. No, not an avid gun guy at all. The fact that he had those kind of weapons is just... Where the hell did he get automatic weapons? He has no military background or anything like that. No religious affiliation, no political affiliation. No, he just hung out.
A regular guy who hung out. That's what people are saying about Stephen Paddock right now, and that's what police are trying to figure out more as to who he was. What we do know, though, is a little bit about his family's background, including his father, who was a pretty well-known bank robber. Back in the 60s and 70s, he was actually on the FBI's top 10 most wanted list. So we know that information. In the upcoming days, we're expected to learn more information. Once police really get out here, they're expected to get out here to the house again later today, dig through more, find out more, get some more evidence, and hopefully figure out a motive at some point. But right now, guys, he remains just a bit of a mystery to a lot of people.
Right. It's the computer's going to tell us so much, I believe. If he's going to prepare like this, get cameras, you get tripods, get platforms, get 23 guns, I'm sure he's got a letter in there or some indication of how he stands and get that mindset. Yeah. Thanks, Jillian.
And the girlfriend.
All right. Meanwhile, Steve is still in Las Vegas. We're back here in New York. And an hour before the rampage, you saw this, Steve. Before Jason Aldean took the stage, Big and Rich, who were here 2 weeks ago, were actually on stage themselves. Afterwards, they hopped in a bus, went back to their bar that they own right in the area. But this is the moment that many are taking with them from that night. Listen.
That video is so touching, Steve and Brian, because if you think of, as a parent, we showed the pictures of the people who have been identified to no longer be with us anymore, that were killed there an hour later at that concert. As a parent, I'm sure they have some peace and some solace knowing that their child was calling out to God to bless our country an hour before they went home to meet him. And I think Laura Ingraham said it best. She said, what a gift. That video is such a gift to America and to those victims' families.
Absolutely, because as you look at everybody holding up their cell phones with the light on it in unity right there, You know, it was just 1 hour after that that every person there was running for their lives because somebody on the 32nd floor had a rifle aiming down, trying to kill as many of them as possible, and would wound 500 and would kill 59. John Rich was on with Hannity last night. Why do they sing this song at each and every concert that Big Kenny and John Rich do? This is why.
Every show that we do, and this has been now for over 1,000 concerts in a row, Big Kenny and I like to invite up active duty and veterans and sometimes first responders as well. And then we always lead the entire crowd in God Bless America. So last night we continued that tradition and did it again. And Sean, you look out there and there's 22,000 people. There were people there from all over the United States and North America singing God Bless America at the top of their lungs with their phones held high with the lights on, celebrating freedom and the ability to live as Americans and sing together in unity.
You know, Steve and Brian, what's interesting, our last guest, the forensic psychiatrist, said when you have someone who's young that does something like this, they do it for notoriety. When you have someone who's older, they do it for a cause. And maybe this guy heard that song, God Bless America. His brother said he didn't believe in God or didn't have a God or didn't have faith in his life. So maybe this is all speculation, but that possibly could be the reason, because he knows country musicians or country music fans are normally pro-God and go to church on Sundays. Maybe he has a problem with that, or had a problem with that. Okay, y'all want to weigh in on that?
Yeah.
All right,
no, I didn't
stay
know.
silent.
I didn't know if Steve. Well,
let us know what you think. Send us your emails.
Well, we're about to find out more today as soon as we get an idea of what is on his computers. And he had devices in his room. He has devices in his house. Meanwhile, President Trump is on his way to Puerto Rico to speak, leaving Joint Base Andrews just moments ago. Our own Geraldo Rivera has been on the ground for a week. We're going to check in with him live next. Moments ago, President Trump and the First Lady boarded Air Force One on the way to a battered island of Puerto Rico this morning, an island Geraldo Rivera is very familiar with.
That's right. Geraldo just rode with the Coast Guard as they were delivering much-needed supplies, and he joins us live from San Juan. Geraldo?
Hi, Ainsley. Hi, Brian. One thing I want to say is that Puerto Ricans on this storm-stricken island are delighted that the president, and by and large delighted that the president and First Lady are coming this way. People were really worried. People were really worried that with the carnage, the mass murder in Vegas, that he would be diverted there. But he's going to go there, obviously, tomorrow. He is coming here first, and they are delighted. One thing that is underreported, I think, in the media generally, is how the Puerto Rican family is coming together. Neighbors, family members, others. Ricky Martin arrived yesterday. J-Lo has donated a bunch of money. People are coming together. The Puerto Rican family helping itself to get up to rise from the ashes of this devastation. Watch what a National Guardsman and his friends did from Queens, New York.
We're going to Cataño now. We came because we didn't think we had enough water. These are the donations that came from New York City, and we're going out today to take care of them.
The biggest problem are the poor, remote people, the people living in rural areas that are cut off. The United States Coast Guard mounting rescue mission, among other U.S. agencies, mounting relief efforts, bringing food and water to remote places. This is the commander of the Coast Guard, Captain Eric King.
Coast Guard is trying to assist to get an assessment of what else is going on the island. So through our partners and with the Puerto Rican government as well as the federal government, we're launching our units and assets to try and make assessments and gain better situational awareness to assist the overall relief effort.
The devastation is widespread and uneven. It's almost like the Three Little Pigs. The people who lived in concrete houses generally fared pretty well. Those with standard wood construction, okay. But those, the rural poor with corrugated metal roofs and basically shanties have been absolutely devastated. And they are most severely affected in remote towns like Utuado up in the mountains, where the Coast Guard delivered that shipment of food and water. Part of the problem in delivering aid, urgently needed aid, is the fact that Puerto Rico has a gigantic mountain range right in the middle of it. Many of the villages there are remote. They have not been reached in 9 days. That Coast Guard chopper is bringing urgently needed water and food to the village of Utuado. After the visit to Utuado, we flew back. Fighting bad weather or racing bad weather, we checked out the dams you've heard so much about, the dams that are imperiled by the fact that the rivers are swollen with rains. The dam we saw holding up pretty well. We landed in Aguadilla on the extreme western end of Puerto Rico. One of the things we did manage to do, going back to what I said about the Puerto Rican family rallying to help itself, is we managed to get a generator to our 84-year-old Aunt Ellie, my father's youngest sibling. Dad was one of 17. She's one of the 3 who survived. She was delighted when her nephew Craig got that generator going and got her some power. So you take joy in the small victories. Still a lot to do. Delighted the president is coming. Back to you, Brian, and Ainsley in New York.
All right, thanks, Geraldo. A good understanding of what the 3.4 million are going through the eyes of yourself and your family. Meanwhile, 11 minutes before the top of the hour.
The video is incredible. Lines wrapped around the block with people waiting hours to donate blood and hopefully save a life. How you can help next hour.
But first, let's check in with Sandra Smith. She's getting ready to host. Pick up the ball here with Bill Hemmer. Hey, Sandra.
Hey, Ainsley. Hey, Brian. More than 24 hours now since that horrific scene played out on the Las Vegas Strip. Authorities now desperately looking for the shooter's motive. Former Boston Superintendent-in-Chief of Police Daniel Linsky on what police are looking for right now. Plus, with over 500 victims rushed to area hospitals, medical staff in Las Vegas is overwhelmed. Dr. Mark Siegel joins us. All of this as the president heads down to Puerto Rico to assess the devastation there.